Hello my darling guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Julia, and today I'll be playing the part of a farmer from Stardew Valley. Okay, so according to the laws of physics, matter can neither be created nor destroyed in an isolated system, and also every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Thus, when I buy a bunch of books, I have to get rid of a bunch of them. So here's a book Unhaul. That was a very obtuse intro. Half-Price Books is finally accepting the selling of books, and therefore I am going to try and sell some. But before I do, I wanted to show you the books that I'm getting rid of, and these are ones that I've both read and not read, and for various reasons I just don't need them on my shelves anymore. I have 3 bookshelves and they're all full, and I have another one in the garage that I'm not using because I don't know where I'd put it. Also my book cart, so there's not enough room for all the books that I want to keep, so I just have to get rid of some of them, and that's totally fine. I've been doing that ever since I was a kid. The first book that I'm unhauling is The Hallowed Hunt by Lois McMaster-Bujold. This is the 3rd book in the World of the Five Gods series, and I've tried reading this twice, and it just wasn't as good as Curse of Chalion and Paladin of Souls, and I just don't think I'm ever gonna get into it. I mean, last time I read it, I got like a good 2/3 of the way through, and I just don't think I'm ever gonna finish it. Lock In by John Scalzi. This was on my DICE TBR, and I was hesitant to read it even when I put it on this list because the main character is an FBI agent, and I really don't want to read a book about law enforcement. And then in like the first few pages I was reading, it was talking about the effects of this pandemic that had swept the country and was still like happening, and I was like, I don't need that in my life right now, so I'm getting rid of it. Next, Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix. This is a super interesting book about like horror, cover art, cheap pulpy paperbacks from the 70s and 80s, but I'm not really a fan of those, and I got this book for free, so I don't really feel bad about selling it, and also I got it like 4 years ago and haven't picked it up, so I'm probably never going to. The Flight Girls by Noel Salazar. I read this book and it was terrible. It just really, really sucked. I wanted to read a book about wasps in World War II, the women auxiliary something pilots, but it was just terrible. If you want a book about wasp, read Fly Girl by Cherie L. Smith. It's much better and doesn't have a stupid love triangle and a really drawn out ending, and it's just much better written, and please don't read this book. It's very bad. Dragon's Dawn by Anne McCaffrey. I bought this because it's a classic female written 20th century sci-fi book, but I know that there's a lot of like gender essentialism in these books, even though there's, you know, good female characters. A lot of the ways that the women and men interact with the dragons is apparently like very gender essentialist. I just don't need that. I don't feel like I'm missing out on a huge cultural touchstone by not reading this series. If I want like 80s feminist fantasy vibes, I'll just read Mercedes Lackey. Dark Side of the Sun by Terry Pratchett. This was also on my DICE TBR, and I've been meaning to give it a chance for a while. It just wasn't gripping me. The main character was black, which was really neat, and then something happens and his entire body gets replaced with green skin, and I was like, oh, wait, he's green now? No, don't need it. Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. I made like a 40-minute video talking about how much I disliked this book, so obviously I'm getting rid of it. Sita Ganda by Lois McMaster-Bujold. There's nothing wrong with this book, I just don't think I'm gonna read it again. Oh, this is another series that I would pick up if I wanted a feminist sci-fi 80s series, but yeah, I mean, I like Miles and I like these books, but I'm just not gonna read this again, don't need to keep it. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I like this book, I think it's very funny, but if I want humor, I'll read Terry Pratchett, and this book can be found anywhere, so if I really feel the need to own a copy again, it will be easy to find one. Hotel Silence by author Ava Olafsdottir. I got this book on my trip to Iceland because I wanted to bring back an Icelandic book. I read it in like one sitting and I just thought it was okay. Also, there's a lot of talk about suicide in it. Yeah, it was fairly good, but like, I know I'm not going to reread it, so again, don't need to keep it. Across the Wall by Garth Nix. This is a book of short stories, one of which is set in the Abhorsen universe. I bought this book before I had become disillusioned by Garth Nix. I really haven't enjoyed anything that he's written since Sabriel. No, that's not true. I did enjoy Abhorsen and Lyriel, but none of his other books. I haven't read this, but I just don't think I'm going to enjoy it, and I haven't even tried to read it in the years that I've had it, so there's just really no point, I don't think, in keeping it. Lost City of Z by David Graham. I got this at like a Goodwill or something, and I wanted like a fun nonfiction book to read, but it's about searching for a lost city in the Amazon by a bunch of white guys, and I just don't need that kind of colonialism. The Steerswoman by Rosemary Christine. I did a review of this in one of my wrap-ups. I think my C Maiden-a-thon wrap-up. Yeah, and it was, you know, good and fun, 80s feminist fantasy. I read a lot of those, but I'm not gonna reread it, and I don't think I'm gonna read the rest of the series, and it was cheap, so it's gone. The Power by Naomi Alderman. This was the first book that I got in my Book of the Month subscription, which I've long since unsubscribed from. Good God, 3 years ago now. This is like a reverse patriarchy novel where women suddenly have the power to shock people with their hands. And I was like, oh cool, that sounds, you know, sci-fi feminist, but a lot of the reviews were like, this book is really not doing the thing that it set out to do and doesn't really explore gender while reversing gender roles in the way that we hoped it would. So yeah, it's not my usual type of book, and based on all those reviews, I just don't think I'm gonna enjoy it. Werewolves in Their Youth by Michael Chabon. He's one of my favorite authors. He wrote The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which I adore, but I don't like short story collections, and I thought, oh, I like Michael Chabon, I'll give this a try, but I just don't think I'm ever gonna read it, so there's no point in keeping it. We're Tuned to the Willows by Jacqueline Kelly and illustrated by Clint Young. I bought this because I love Wind in the Willows and I like non-canon Wind in the Willows continuation, but this one just wasn't it. So the original Wind in the Willows had no female characters anywhere, but Rat and Mole were like confirmed bachelors, like they lived together and did everything together. You're like, oh, that's cute, they're, you know, gay animals. But in this book, the rat like meets a female rat. You're like, oh cool, a female character, and then after a while I was like, oh no, yeah, the rat gets married to her, so bye. Don't need that in my life. Why couldn't she have just been like a cool character that hung out with them? I don't understand. Ugh, makes me mad. Descendant of the Crane by Joan Hay. I got this at Independent Bookstore Day last year, and I was like, oh cool, fantasy by a Chinese American author, but it was just not good. It was not a good book. It was supposed to be a political drama, but like nothing political happened. The main character was really dumb. There was like supposed to be a love interest, but he was very poorly written. Okay, so her dad passes away and she becomes the queen, but like she just goes wherever she wants and does wherever she wants, and like no one questions like, hey, where's the queen today? Did she have guards at her door that like keep track of where she went? No, apparently not. She just runs around and does whatever the heck. Also, I saw the twist coming from like a mile away. And then last are a bunch of anthologies that I'm just gonna go through really quickly. The same thing can be said for all of these. I don't like short stories very much, and I don't know why I keep buying anthologies, because I'm not gonna read them. Penguin Book of Modern Fantasy by Women. There's only like one short story by a black woman in here, and it's Octavia Butler. Nebula Award Showcase 2016. This has excerpts of books that were nominated for the Nebula that year, also the novel and short story, but I'm just never gonna read it. Nebula Award Shortcase 2014, same. Best American Essays 2007, edited by David Foster Wallace. I read like one of these essays and it was really good, but I cannot bring myself to pick it up since then, and I know I would just be torturing myself if I tried and read it. The Nebula Awards, wait, when did this come out? Like 1970? So another Nebula Award Showcase. I got this like for free in a grab box in college. I got this because it has an Ursula Le Guin, Harlan Ellison, and Samuel R. Delaney short story in it, but I've had it on my shelf for ages and like I've never looked at it, so it's gone. And then a bunch of books that I got for school that I'm finally getting rid of. Troubling the Line, Trans and Genderqueer Poetry and Politics. This is a hefty tome. I read quite a few of these for college, but it's so big that I'm never gonna like sit down and read it cover to cover, and I don't really like the selection of poems in here. If I want to read some of these poets individually, I'll buy or check out from the library their editions. I mean, I think Don Lundy Martin and a few other poets that I have actually read are in here, so I think it served its purpose. Material Volume 1, written by a bunch of people. I got this from my comic studying class that I took in college, and I didn't enjoy it very much. It was like the equivalent of an HBO series, and I just don't read like contemporary comics. I prefer like middle grade or superhero, so I don't need this anymore. And then Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. This book was really cool and was a really great introduction for my comic book reading class, but again, I'm not going to read it, and I feel like I've learned everything that I can from this book, so someone else will enjoy it more than me. Okay, that was about 25 books, and hopefully I'll make like, $5 selling them at half-price books. Alright, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.